d4, knight f6, knight f3 and b6 from Magnus Carlsen. Once again going with the offbeat stuff. Now here it's very justified. It's over the board chess but rapid, not classical, and his opponent about 250 points lower rated. The German player Daniel Fridman, who qualified for this GRENKE Super GM round robin, 6 players, by winning the last Open when the GRENKE was played, but it hasn't been on for years due to COVID and all that jazz. We're back now. Magnus lost round 1 to Richie, blundered a piece. This is round 2, rapid chess, not classical, exciting stuff. Let's check it out here. So g3 played, bishop b7 from Magnus, bishop g2, g6, c4, standard stuff, and Magnus now gets those bishops crossing swords. Beautiful on a chessboard, but not ideal in the men's urinals. Don't try that one. Castles from both players, and now d5. A computer approved move, taking the space, but you open the diagonal, you give some dark squares. This is what Magnus now plays for with knight a6. Sidelined, yes, but headed for c5. So knight c3 played, knight c5, and now we don't see b4 because for one thing, e4 is under black's control. For another, you can hop and you'll critically weaken the diagonal. So knight d4 instead. Good move. Open the eyes of the bishop. And e5 now from Magnus. Why don't we see takes en passant? Well, you're actually helping the black pawn structure and opening the eyes of this bishop, which is now blocked by a pawn. So instead, knight b3 played. Magnus could capture, but doesn't do it. He goes d6, rock solid as cement, that knight on c5. And so Daniel decides to now capture. Always capture towards the center as a rule of thumb. a3 looks for b4 and Magnus goes knight d7, unleashing the f-pawn as we'll see. e4 now played, f5 comes on the board, b4 in response, a classic King's Indian style battle now, and after bishop a6 from Magnus, targeting c4, he's goading b5, please close the structure. It is a playable move by the way, not so bad, but then Magnus gets a free hand over here, so instead we get queen d3. Magnus voluntarily drops back the bishop. So often this one participates in the attack. We get knight a4 now, targeting c5. Very thematic, but Magnus goes for his own play. Doesn't try and defend the pawn, which you can't do, or take immediately. He goes knight f6. And if white takes here, a bit too trigger happy, well, black's taking here, winning a pawn unless you want to give the light squared bishop, but then you get really nastily attacked on those light squares. So instead, f3 played. Now Magnus takes on b4. Pawn recaptures, c5 on the cards of course, but Magnus first to the punch with the expansion of the pawns, f4 played. Knight c3 back, g5 now, vamos. g4 from Daniel therefore to try and keep the structure closed. And after h5, h3, captures, this is where we get the moment that Magnus unleashes his inner Mikhail Tal. For those who don't know, he was known as the Wizard of Riga, an astonishing player from back in the day, sacrificed left, right and centre. Magnus takes on g4 with the knight. Love to see it. What's the point? Well, he's got 2 connected pass pawns now, rook behind, he wants to get them rumbling. Now there is an equilibrium here, but only if white finds the right defence. Bishop h3, excellent start. Trying to control the light squares, blockade the pawns. So Magnus says knight d7, sorry, queen d7. I want the light squares here. And now Daniel concedes them, takes. There was this funny move, rook h3. You know, no takes, or the queen drops. But after takes, rook takes. Is that good? g4. Computer says yes, but tricky. Instead, takes played. Ceding the light squares with check. King on the run here. Now another check. King e2. g2 and g4. The point revealed of the sacrifice. Those ones rumbling. How do you defend? King d1 a good move. f3 from Magnus, and now a blunder. Well, blunder in precision, right, from Daniel. It's very tough. Pause if you want to test your defensive skills here, because the best move is the move of bishop e3. Stops an immediate f2. Yes, g3 can come, but it's a better defensive setup for white. We won't go down the rabbit hole because king c2 played, allowing an immediate f2. Queen e2, but now rook f3. Magnus piling on the pressure. We see bishop e3 eventually played, but the second rook joins the party, even ditches the pawn, which is now captured. The computer prefers rook h1, kicking the queen back. Different game. The metal monster sees all, but takes on a7 played, and now the best move here is bishop h6, just piling on some pressure, not rushing through with g3. You can even sack an exchange, but Magnus here unbelievably blunders, gives away all of his advantage, which is about 3.5 pawns. He plays the very natural move, pawn to g3. Rook supports rook. Pawns are running, looks amazing, but he's overlooked a tactic which Daniel Fridman finds with rook a8. What a move, trying to distract Magnus's rook, and Magnus has nothing better but to capture. Let this one drop, this is the point, and you're now setting up this blockade. Queen h3 from Magnus, trying to control light squares. Rook h1 therefore to kick that queen, and Magnus doesn't move it, he goes rook f8. This is the way to go. Of course, the queen had to stay with the defense of g3. And now you can take here. It's the preferred line of the engine. You actually give up a queen in that line. But instead, we see rook takes on h3. Rook takes here. Bishop captures, allowing Magnus to take with check, but the point being the pawn can't take, or rook takes here. So this is what we get. King b3, g2 played, and after rook g3 coming behind the pawn, the computer says king h7 the way to go. Apparently, maybe the idea is to march down like this, but after king f7, apparently Magnus blows a slender advantage. The game just level. c5 to undermine the structure. Bishop f8 therefore, king c4, bishop h6 bouncing right back, and after b5 takes on c5, we don't see king captures. This is a mistake. Many good moves, but here's a clean one. Check. No time for rook to capture, or the queen is made. If the king marches, then something like rook c2 does the job. The pawn about to promote, supported by the bishop, knight under fire, still can't take. These are some of the problems. So instead of taking, we see d6. It's excellent endgame play. Grandmasterly. Daniel Fridman, a very strong player in his own right. The b pawn running. Rook b2 therefore. Magnus has to stumble back. Now he throws in a check. King d5, rook takes on b7, and that g pawn, so lovely, that was first sacrificed for the piece, drops off the board. Yes, Magnus is 2 pawns up, but it's tricky. The white piece is so active, and this bishop on all the same colour complex as its pawns, not ideal, right? So rook b6 now played. We get rook a2 activating, rook b3 hitting the knight, and here now low on time, Daniel shows his rating and goes wrong. He should go king c4, try and hold a balance, force Magnus to show something with the pawns, but instead he checks, drives Magnus's king up the board, and then goes king c4. But check now played, king d5 back and bishop d2, and the construction is starting to fall apart for white. The knight has to give ground, it's attacked, but now rook b3. What an endgame squeeze. The knight can't come here, and it's really running out of squares. It's only got this one available, and from there, where is it going, right? Not fun. So rook a2 played, hits this bishop. We see bishop b4, king takes on d6, 1 pawn gained, brilliant, but now check. king c6 and king g5. The white king way offside here, the black one marching in, and apparently the best defense for white was rook a1, something along those lines. But king b5 now played. King g4, king c4 hits the rook, but after rook d1, rook c2, the black king enters with a vengeance. The knight has to give ground. The pawn drops. Magnus now 2 pawns ahead, and they're rumbling. We get knight b3, rook d3, check, blocked, knight c1, Daniel stumbling around, the rooks come off the board, and after king f3, you just can't stop the march of this e-pawn. Magnus imperious, getting the job done. Yes, he stumbled, missed the trap which Daniel set for him, but eventually he got there in an endgame grind. Classic Magnus. I'm rushing out tonight, on my way to play a chess game myself. Always enjoy your support. Do let me know if you enjoyed in the comments, and for another epic game, check out the video on the screen. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.